What is up, guys? It is Joe. We're back. We're talking all about the Cats, and in today's video, we're talking about our boy Linkon Cure, a massive win for Kansas State on the recruiting front as the five-star prospect elects to stay in the state of Kansas. It's a massive win, and I'm going to talk about my thoughts about the whole situation, what this means going forward, what this means for Linkon Cure, as well as the Cats this season. I'm going to talk about it all. But before I do, let me remind you, we're trying to close in on 3,000 subs. At the 3,000 sub mark, I'm going to be getting a cat script tattoo on the left thigh, so be sure to hit that subscribe button if you want to see that, as well as staying engaged in all the transfer portal content, recruiting content. We'll have a little bit of everything the next few months, but guys, I just wanted to remind you that before we do get in today's video. And the only way to start this off, I just have to say this. I'm not going to sit here and take a victory lap because I'm not that guy. I never doubted. I never doubted the Linkon Cure situation once. I saw the national recruiting, guys saying, hey, the crystal ball's flipping to Oregon. I also saw the idea that, hey, this kid will be, he won't get off campus without committing to Oregon. I also saw this and this and this. Instead of doubting that, I said, you know what, we'll wait and see. Because you think about this. This is a kid that grew up in the state of Kansas with the state of Kansas morals and values, and I'm not going to sit here and say that it wasn't a situation where it's a 50-50 split, where it's a coin flip. The longer that recruitment went after the visit, every day that passed was better for Kansas State. So instead of taking a victory lap and flexing and saying I never doubted, I'm just going to say that I popped the bottle tonight. And because YouTube doesn't like you drinking, I will show you the bottle cap instead. Cheers to all of you, my friends, as we support the Cats. I said bottle cap, I mean cork. It is what it is. Celebration time. That's exactly what tonight is, folks. I get that this is probably being seen at 8 a.m., so this was obviously recorded last night, not at 8 a.m. But I wanted to talk a little bit about the recruitment process of what it means for Kansas State, because you think about this. K-State just beat the #1 team in the country, a 13-0 record, the #1 seed in the college football playoff, with the most amount of NIL money and the most expensive roster in college football this season alongside Ohio State. There is no team in college football that is safe from Oregon. And you think about this. Kansas State was able to pull it off. Cal wasn't. LSU wasn't. Ohio State wasn't. All these different people that did this. There were multiple five-star prospects that flipped from their own college, Florida, Ole Miss, whatever the case was. There's so many different five-star prospects and four-star prospects that flipped to Oregon the day of signing day. So it tells me these dudes are exploring every single person out there and waiting till the last possible moment to flip these dudes. That's fine. That's recruiting. It's the way it goes at the high levels. But the fact that Dan Lanning and his squad can't sit there and say, haha, we got this guy that we needed, feels good. It feels good that Linkon Cure said, you know what, I'm a man of my word. I want to be the first for Kansas State. Avery Johnson's a massive recruit. Dylan Edwards, massive recruit. I know it's a portal situation, so it's a little bit different, but Cure is the top-ranked player in the history of the program committing to Kansas State. A five-star prospect that is going to be an absolute monster, and realistically, the kid could have gone to Arkansas State and been a first-round NFL draft pick. But he chose to stay in the state of Kansas, and that says so much for the team going forward. It says a ton for Avery Johnson. We'll talk about what it means for next year's squad, but specifically overall, if you're an Ian Premer, if you're a J.J. Dunnigan, if you're one of these top guys in the state of Kansas, you sit there and you say, I don't have to be the first one to do this. I don't have to be the one that says, am I going out of state like the rest of, the Andrew Babalolas? Do I have to do this and this and this? I can stay because Big Link did it. Linkon Cure decided to stay. He was getting recruited by literally everybody and decided, hey, Manhattan, Kansas is the place for me. To add that, and I'll give a shout out to my guy Mason Voth for this quote, so I don't want to steal this by any means. Every other player that was a 4-star or 5-star recruit in the state of Kansas went to an SEC or Big Ten school. Think about that. Linkon Cure said, no, I'm staying at Kansas State. This is where I'm meant to be. And you can credit that to whatever you want. You can credit it to the fact that he grew up in Goodland. You can credit it to Brian LePack, the best tight end coach in the country. You can credit it to Chris Kleiman, to Avery Johnson, whatever you want to credit it to. All that matters is that the kid's going to wear purple and white next year and be one of the best players in the country as a true freshman. A dude that'll step on the field and make immediate strides, immediate impact for Avery Johnson in the passing game. But it just goes to show how solid this staff is. And I know this last couple weeks have been tough because you lose to Iowa State, you lose to Arizona State, you lose some of these games and you say, dang, where are we headed? You're headed towards a 5-star prospect. Even when things, like I've seen a lot of tweets this week, basically freaking out, saying, fire this person sucks, everything sucks. Even when things are at their darkest, Chris Kleiman still pulls through. Please do not doubt this program, guys. They're doing things like this. They're fending off Phil Knight, a dude who is basically saying, $85 million a year, I'll send that to the Oregon staff before I die. I need to see a national championship. You have one of the best coaches in college football in Dan Lanning. You have the best recruiters. You have the best facilities. You have the most money. You still can't take away the one thing that Kansas State has, and that's the family ties. You cannot appeal to that. You can't. Linkon Cure was meant to be a Wildcat, and Destiny chose him for that. It is what it is. I mean, you can look at it 1,000 different ways. Oregon fans got a different 5-star tight end every single year. They've got good players, but you don't have Linkon Cure. You just won't. The kid stuck to his guns, said, you know what? I know what I'm about. I'm a man of my word. I stay with the program I want to be at. And it's not only that. It's not just saying, okay, we beat them to the initial commitment. You beat them twice. The commitment was just phase one. Then Dan Lanning and the boys say, you know what? We're going to go all out full court press. That was our half court trap. Now we're going full court press on Linkon Cure. Linkon Cure says no twice to Phil Knight, to Dan Lanning, stays with Kansas State because he believes in what Kansas State has to offer. And that goes to show how much good is ahead of us for everybody. Because you think about it this way. If you want to look at this team specifically, Avery Johnson, you have your star tight end. And that's not to say that Braden Lofton or a Will Ancio or a Garrett Oakley, not to say that those guys aren't studs. And I will not sit here and say that. No shame towards those dudes. They led the nation in receiving touchdowns at the tight end position. Avery Johnson now has his elite NFL tight end. You add a dude, if you can retain Jace Brown, obviously that's something to talk about. I'm sure we'll talk about that again on the channel. If you can retain Jace Brown and you add a legit wide receiver one that's a game changer, you add some more dudes in the O-line, you add some studs on the defensive side, you can be a college football playoff contender. You can be a national championship contender with the offense alone. I mean, think about that. You get guys like Linkon Cure, the most athletic kid in the state of Kansas, probably nationwide, to be perfectly honest with you, as a pass catcher. You get that dude in the middle of the field. You get an elite receiver. Say you get a Casey Concepcion. Say you keep Jace Brown on the other side. Say you get another receiver that's talented in the portal. Think if you retain DJ Giddens or if Dylan Edwards steps up. Whatever the case is, you have an offense powered by kids in the state of Kansas. Avery Johnson, Dylan Edwards, Linkon Cure, DJ Giddens, whatever the case is. Tons on the offensive line. You have an offense built by the state of Kansas that is not only putting on for Kansas and Kansas State, they're putting on for the nation to say, hey, elite players, you're staying in the state of Kansas. This is the program for you. And it speaks volumes. So that's why I sit here and I say, I can't imagine a world where J.J. Dunnigan goes elsewhere. Or where I say, Ian Premer, I can't imagine a world where he goes somewhere else. Not necessarily because we have the best everything in the world, but because that family tie, that thing you can't really explain, the feeling in the air that you get on campus, they don't have that. Guys out of state may not feel that. Guys in the state of Kansas that have that uproots of, hey, I grew up here. I know what it's like here. I want to be that hometown hero type kid. That stuff you can't market anywhere else. Kansas is truly different. And that's why you got to salute yourself to Chris Kleiman. It's why you got to salute yourself to a guy like Taylor Bratt, who knocks it out of the park every single time. There's just a lot of praise to go around in this, whether it's Matt Wells, who did a great job, whether it's Connor Riley, whether it's Brian LePack, whether anybody in the list that needs a shout out, everybody deserves it. And I think you can chalk it up to a million different things. I want to get a couple more thoughts here before I get out of here, but overall, you have your guy. You've got your guy for the long haul. Now you go, what's next? What do we do next? Attack the transfer portal. What's next after that? Attack the next class. And then you have Link there as an option to say, hey, Ian Premer, look what happened to me. You go have a stud season on the field, look what happened to me. Dylan Edwards goes out there, balls for 1,000 yards. Hey, running backs behind me, look what happened to me. J.J. Dunnigan, look what happens when you have a Chris Kleiman guy who turns DBs into NFL prospects every other year. Look what happens when you stay here for 4 years. Brendan Mott's a perfect example of that. Look what happens when you're here for 5 or 6 years and you commit every single day. Look how good you can be. You can lead the Big 12 in sacks. You can do anything your mind's set to, and it's all because of the guy in charge. You get Chris Kleiman, you get Avery Johnson, you get guys that understand what it means to be a Kansas State Wildcat, and Linkon Cure is one of those guys. So a massive amount of praise goes to Linkon and his family supporting cast. I also want to give a shout out to Derek Young from On3, who I think had a really good way of summing it up. Like, this isn't always going to be the case, so take it with a grain of salt, but at the end of the day, when you sit there and you say, who is easier to tell no to? Who is easier to tell yes to? You are in Goodland, Kansas, and you say, this program I grew up loving. I know he's a fan of Oregon because of the jerseys and all that, but you look at Oregon, that's a 30-hour car ride, I assume. I've never driven to Oregon, but it's probably upwards of 25 hours to drive to Oregon. It's probably a 6-7 hour flight to get to Oregon. Or you go to Kansas State, that's 2-3 hours down the road from Goodland, and your family can go watch you. Your family can go support you. And sure, they can go out to Oregon to see you as well, but who is easier to say no to when it's all said and done? When you're about to sign this paper and you say, I have to go away from my family, from my support system. I have to go away from the community I know, the people that I love. How do I adjust by starting fresh? Some dudes have that, in their DNA that say, I want to go away from home. I don't want to be here anymore. Some dudes say, I'm me because of where I grew up. I'm me because of what happened to me. Linkon Cure falls in that category of guys that say, you know what? I'm not leaving the state. I'm not leaving my hometown out to dry. I am who I am, and I'm staying here to prove it. So just an awesome thing to see all around for Linkon Cure. I know the recruitment was up and down all around. I talked to Link a little bit in the process, not a ton. I didn't really give much advice or whatever, but we talked a little bit about it, and you could kind of tell he's on the fence for both sides. But in the end, the kid just listened to himself, listened to his heart, and I know that all in all, he got a little bit of flack for exploring options with Oregon, to explore options with Dan Lanning, etc. But honestly, at the end of the day, the kid listened to himself and made the right choice. So a massive shout out to the guy. Massive shout out to everybody involved in his recruitment. Linkon Cure is an absolute dog. He's a cat, and he's at Kansas State. A massive win for the program. Once again, cheers, because tonight is a celebration, folks. And we'll cover all the next class. We'll cover everything going forward with the transfer portal. But I just wanted to have a minute to reflect and say thank you to everybody who supported this whole process. I mean, Linkon Cure has been a topic on this channel for about a year now, so a great thing to see that thing come full circle. So an awesome moment all around, guys, but that's going to do it for today's video. I appreciate all the love and support on the channel. We'll keep making some videos here, so on and so forth. We'll probably talk to you here tomorrow, but that's going to do it for today, guys. I will talk to you soon. Go Cats!